Hello, I'm Mary Soom, Dallas City Manager, and on August 8th, staff presented to the Dallas City Council the City Manager's recommended budget. We want to provide you the opportunity to have a similar presentation, and after this presentation, a mechanism to ask questions about it if you so desire. Additionally, on our webpage, you'll be able to see where you can attend town hall meetings to share your comments and concerns with individual council members. And we welcome you at those town hall meetings. We'll be delighted to see you and be responsive to your concerns and questions. So if we'll begin right now on the City Manager's proposed 2011-2012 budget. After 3 years of declining revenues due to our global recession, we're beginning to see some gradual signs of improvement in different sectors of our economy. Slight improvements in housing and construction, but unemployment rates and growth is very slow still. So our local economy, while it's healthier than many other economies in the United States, is still not experiencing significant growth. And in spite of the slight growth, even with the slight growth, caution is warranted as we move forward because the economy clearly is still fragile. Our guiding principles as we have developed this budget are living within our means and additionally building on the guiding principles of the Council's strategic plan: public safety, economic vibrancy, clean, healthy environment, culture, arts, recreation, education, and efficient, effective government. In looking at our FY 11-12 proposed budget, one way to look at it is by the funds. So you have the total of the annual budget at the top of this chart, $2.59 billion, broken into the operating budget and the capital budget, the operating budget being $1.99 billion and the capital budget $596 million. Another way to look at this is by our key focus areas, which have been determined by the Council for the Strategic Plan, and here you see it broken out the same way here, again with public safety as one of the biggest expenditures in our budget. Looking at the major general fund revenues and expense changes, we'll review them quickly. The general fund budget is basically flat for 2012 as compared with 2011. There's less than 0.1% increase in the budget. Our property tax revenues have reduced due to a reduction in property values. We have no tax rate increase in this budget. Our budget tax base loss this year was 1.72%. This is less than we had projected and is a good sign, but it's still a loss of revenues to the budget. Our tax base has declined over 9% since 2009, and so with lower property values, we've lost more than $65 million in revenue for 2012. Sales tax, we're beginning to see a little bit of an increase, and over the last 14 months has grown a little bit, but we're still down almost $14 million from the peak we reached in FY 08. On the expense side, the general fund expenses, again, very small increase, and the key drivers that have caused these expenditures to increase are public safety. This is the second year of meet and confer agreement, and we've added 200 officers for attrition. Also, we've added additional fire recruits so that we can reduce our overtime in there in the out years. There were state and federal reductions in the budget due to changes that were made at those levels. Our fuel prices and our electricity prices have gone up. In addition, we have obligations to meet with our public-private partnerships, such as the Dallas Zoo and the AT&T Performing Arts Center. These partnerships were made through contracts, and the city has an obligation to maintain their commitment to these particular contracts because they benefit us in the long run. Also, there are some operational costs for some capital projects that are being placed into service. Now we'll look through with some special attention to the key focus areas and the highlights there. And the first one is public safety. 200 officers will be hired in FY 12 to replace those expected to leave the force. This is the attrition that we expect in the upcoming year, so we will maintain our approximately 3 per 1,000 officers. We're adding 200 firefighters this coming year, which is about twice the number we expect from attrition, and this will result in a net overtime savings for the following year of in excess of $6 million. Improved efficiencies in fire rescue as a result of optimizing and realigning our fire trucks also gives us some savings not only money-wise, but also in savings and response time. We'll be able to respond more quickly. This particular change, we have not looked at workload versus equipment in almost 25 years, and as we looked to see where the workload was and where the equipment should be, we found that we could make some changes and improve the response time citywide. We have a new fire station opening in February 2012 at Keeneland and Walton Walker, that's 50s, and a municipal courts building will be expected to be completing its renovation in September 2012. Our current services are maintained in public safety, and you can see them listed here. And then the following reductions have occurred: some of the civilian support personnel in the police department, and we will not be replacing them with trained officers. Some of their work has been made more efficient, and in other cases, officers that are not able to be on the street due to injury or other problems can work in those places. 10 security officers at the Dallas facilities, the city facilities, have been reduced. We'll be using cameras, security cameras more often, and also contract security. And savings will continue in 2012 on the meet and confer agreement. We did add an additional $8 million for the requirements to meet and confer this year, but as you remember, there was a $22 million savings in last year from meet and confer. Economic vibrancy is our second key focus area, and the enhancements include staff and technology improvements adding to building inspection. As the economy returns and growth occurs and construction occurs in our community, we need to be sure we have the staff and technology to support it, because obviously that is growing our tax base. Our 2006 bond implementation continues, and we work on the city's infrastructure and putting more dollars into the local economy through that construction. The Margaret Hunt Hill Bridge, the Woodall Rogers Tunnel, and the Convention Center Hotel are all expected to be complete this coming year. Historic preservation activities, which have previously been funded in the Building Inspection Fund, will begin to be transferred into the General Fund, and this is the first year of a 3-year phase-in to do that. Additionally, last year we made reductions in technical staff that maintained signals throughout traffic signals throughout our community, and we have added back some repair technicians and materials to address the outages we were experiencing during storm events. The current services that remain the same are flood control, street maintenance. Our street maintenance is exactly the same as it was last year. Our capital program and implementation and planning of that. Economic development has the same level of funding and staffing as it did before. Operation and maintenance of Fair Park, and the street light power and maintenance remains the same too. In the clean, healthy environment key focus area, enhancements include in code compliance, an increase in the nuisance abatement crews. These are the crews that pick up litter and cut down weeds across the city on property that the owners do not manage to get this done. After we do this, we do attach a lien for the cost of that, but it also keeps our community clean. The community prosecutors, which have been funded by federal funds over the last several years, that funding is ended, and so we're assuming that into the general fund. Senior citizens, there was a medical transportation grant that provided transportation for seniors. That grant has expired, and we are taking that expense into the general fund also. And we've added 2 marshals to deal with illegal dumping along the levee in the Trinity River in the Trinity Forest. Again, cleaning up an area that we want to encourage our citizens to use. The Pavaho pump station and the improvements associated with that should be completed by this time next year, and that is one of the areas that will reduce funding in our West Dallas area. Current services will be maintained: our stormwater management program, code, air quality, the community centers at MLK and West Dallas, and the homeless outreach, which the city has funded to the bridge. Reductions include some savings that we've achieved through outsourcing animal cruelty investigation to the ASPCA and also privatizing the kennel cleaning process at the animal shelter. On our culture, arts, and recreation, the enhancements include the increased support to the zoo, which comes in the form of additional support for a contract that we have to manage that with the Zoological Society. The AT&T Performing Arts Center also had an agreement that the city would support their operations by $2.5 million a year, and there's $1 million added into this budget to begin bringing that up to the level it should be. The City Performance Hall, which is scheduled to open in 2012, its startup operations are funded, and Belo Garden will be complete in 2012 in February. The Elm Fork Soccer Complex also will be complete at the end of next fiscal year. Current services include the rec centers. 41 of the 43 will be open. 2 centers will be closed, Fruitdale and Marcus Annex. 4 centers will be operated in partnership with nonprofits, and 14 centers will be open for portions of the year as they're under construction or renovation. The aquatic services include 11 community pools, 1 swim lesson pool, a Bachman indoor pool, and Bahama Beach. Golf and tennis centers are supported primarily through revenues, and nature centers and destination parks remain open, and the cultural centers around the city are funded at the current level with no staff or programming reductions. There are some reductions in the parkland maintenance, a little bit, and we think we can achieve some efficiencies through privatization by reducing the park furnishing replacements and some minor reductions in the maintenance cycles of mowing, litter, and lighting. The cultural arts service contracts, those organizations that we contract with for cultural services, their program budgets are reduced by 10%. On the educational enhancements, or educational side of our key focus area, the White Rock Hills Neighborhood Library is scheduled to open in January of 2012. This is a long-awaited library for that neighborhood. And we've increased the library materials budget by 20% over this year to $2 million in 2012. Again, this is not the complete restoration of library materials at its peak, but it's headed in the right direction. Current services include maintaining the funding for Thriving Minds, maintaining the hours for the central and neighborhood libraries, and the libraries that co-locate with DISD will maintain their hours of operation at about 56 hours a week. Library hours are maintained, however, staffing at the various branches is reduced a bit. The customer service reps will be reduced and, because we've streamlined processes and improved technology. The library now has self-checkouts in all branches. That will be completed by the end of next month. And so there'll be some reduction in one-on-one service, but we believe this is an approach that we can live with to maintain our library hours this coming year. On E3 government, we are adding additional call takers to 311. And also upgrading our technology, which has not been upgraded since we started that particular service. We were finding that the wait times in 311 were too long, so we're adding some additional staff there. Additionally, the funding for the City Design Studio is leveraged against grant funds from Dee and Rusty Rose, and we have a commitment to that on an annual basis. And in human resources, we're working on a consolidation of the efforts around the city for human resources in order to encourage consistency and accuracy in human resources advice that's given to the different departments. We'll be maintaining our city administrative services, tax collection, the audit, cash and debt management, and so on. Reductions in this area include custodial services for city facilities being reduced somewhat. Also, we will be complying with the financial management performance criteria on our reserves. Impact on the civilian side of the organization, the reduction in force will be approximately 100 people. We will be working with them to find other jobs in the city or other jobs outside of our organization. We will be restoring 3 of the mandatory city leave days in FY12. Civilian employees' pay will still be reduced from where it was originally, but these leave days will not only return the employees to work for the citizens, but also return their salary for those days. There are no civilian pay and performance increases, and the health benefits do pick up a little bit this year. The premiums will be a little bit increased. On our other services that are not in the general fund, water utilities, we're experiencing severe drought conditions, not so much as the rest of the state, but it brings to mind the importance of maintaining our water infrastructure. Our water department is an older water department, in excess of 100 years old. We need to be sure that we're replacing aged mains, water mains and wastewater mains. We also need to improve our water treatment plants to be sure that they're reliable and they have the capacity we need. We need to continue our conservation efforts and pipeline projects that connect us to reservoirs in other parts of the state where we have water rights. An overall rate increase of 5.9% is necessary to achieve these goals. Water is the most critical thing to our community as far as growth and maintaining our prosperity. These investments need to be made as we acquire rights for more water and as we maintain the system that carries water to our citizens. The budget for the water department is $552 million approximately for operations and $276 million for capital investment. Again, we must continue to think about continuing drought situations, restrictions in water capacity due to the East Side Water Treatment Plant expansion, and also this projects rates in the next couple of years will continue to be raised as we look at these things we want to achieve in order to keep Dallas with plenty of safe, clean drinking water. This chart will give you an idea of the average increase for the various levels of usage. The more water you use, the more you pay for it, but the average bill will be a monthly increase of a little over $4. The following chart shows you the index city comparisons of average monthly water and sewer residential bills. You can see Dallas is on the downside of that. These bills from other cities do not include their plans for their next year's budget yet. So this is this year's budget in our case compared to next year's. And then this is the customer cities that work with us, that buy water from us and have water processing from us. And you can see again, we use our numbers that are there for the upcoming year. The other numbers here from the other cities may not include what they're going to do in the coming year. On our other fee-based services, there's no increase in the sanitation fee, same service, one-day Dallas and the monthly bulky trash pickup. Residential fee will not change, stays at the $20.25 per month. And the McComas landfill gate fee per ton is not changed either, and there's no change in the proposed FY12 for storm drainage management fee. It's always important as we do an annual budget to think beyond that budget, and as we look out to FY12, it is a good thing the last few years we've maintained our focus on public safety and economic development. We've tried to live within our means, and we've made reductions in our budget, but we continue to plan and invest in the future with a long-term goal, an overarching goal of expanding the city's tax base so we don't have to have tax rate increases. There are projects in process that will be completed in the upcoming year that will have an impact on our future budgets. Convention Center Hotel, Margaret Hunt Hill, Woodall Rogers Deck Park, Love Field Modernization, City Performance Hall, the Below Gardens, all we imagine will have a positive effect on our community and the growth of our community. And despite the slight economic growth indicated locally and the positive nature we feel about that, the global economy remains pretty fragile, and it means that we ought to keep an eye on that. Financial challenges may continue in future years, and they may negatively impact the budget. So as we plan for this year's budget, we need to be sure we aren't creating expenses in the out years. Reductions. One of these expenses in the out years might be the reductions that we've put in place over the last few years. We have made some reductions in order to meet our budget that are good reductions for short term, but they're not good for the long term. And street maintenance and facility maintenance on city facilities are certainly an example of this. We also have additional components of the meet and confer agreement that will be required in FY13. And we're working to restore the civilian employee pay, which is still 2 to 5% less than it was in FY10. Our infrastructure needs and our debt requirements must be considered as we look to future bond programs, hopefully in the fall of 2012. And we need to be thinking about the strategies for in the out years as future requirements come into place. Our schedule for the next 2 months includes community meetings, which you can find the schedule for those specifically on our webpage. Also some budget workshops with the council, where the council talks in more detail about the items they're particularly interested in seeing in detail. And then on September 28th, the final reading and the budget adoption occurs.